Hi, I'm Michael. I'm with New Way Health and Fitness. I'm with Dr. Phil with Impact Health, and today we're going to learn about how to improve the rotation in your thoracic spine and what benefits you can get with that in both everyday life and in your culture.
All right, so real quick, I'm gonna just basically go over the spine for you guys, just in case you don't know, because if I use any medical jargon, I want you guys to be able to follow me. The spine is broken up into three sections. You have your cervical, which consists of your neck. You have your thoracic, which consists of the rib cage, and then you have your lumbar, which consists of the lower back area right above the pelvis. Some people like to say you got four sections because the sacrum, which is the back part of the pelvis, is part of the spine as well too. Sometimes there's a little bit of controversy between that. All right, so the spine is broken up, as I said, into three different sections. We talked about cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. You have 7 cervical vertebrae. These guys are more incorporated with flexion and rotation. The thoracic spine also has rotation. Those are the 12 segments, which are all the rib cage areas. And then you have the 5 lumbar section, which is considered to be the lower back. Each one of them have to independently work, but collectively work as a whole. So if you're limited here, you're going to end up taking it out of here to here. If you're limited here, it's going to be taken out of there. So depending on the area that you have the least amount of motion, that's what's going to give you the problem. And so the areas that have more motion, they're going to have to compensate, and that's when you can have an injury. What we're focusing on now is going to be the swinging motion, the rotational motion, more so in the thoracic and the lumbar spine. And so a lot of people think, well, I have a tight back, I need to stretch it, or I have a tight upper back, I need to stretch it. A lot of the times it's more of a motor control problem, meaning you don't have the neuromuscular control to get you into those movements. So sometimes people can get the feeling of being tight. And it's not really tight, it's just it's not active enough to get you through the different motions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple positions with you so you can get yourself into the rotational movements that activate your abdominals, your multifidus, which are the scaffolding muscles that are really deep that go up and down your back. So this way we can get some more motion in your lower back and your thoracic spine, because that's really the area we want to focus on. So the start position is the way Mike is here, and we're going to do some variations on what we're going to do with as far as the movement is going. So the first one is going to be just put your hands behind your head. Okay, the upper body is going to be relatively still for the first motion. He's going to bring his knees all the way up. It's going to pass a little bit the vertical, so he's not overdoing the tension through his lower back. And if you watched one of the other videos that incorporated the pelvic tilt, he's going to be incorporating that little pelvic tilt motion. So he's going to engage the abdominals just a little bit enough to engage so that the lower back flattens. And the motion is going to be very small, and it's going to slowly start increasing to side to side. But the idea is controlled motion. You don't want to be whipping it back and forth because you can irritate your lower back and your mid back. And so while you're doing the pelvic tilt, what I want you to start doing, Mike, is really slowly going one way and the other. And you're not really doing a lot of motion, it's really getting your multifidus, your abdominals, the transverse abdominals, all those guys to stay engaged. You want to keep the pelvic tucked. You also want to keep the knees past 90 degrees, so this way, if you don't, it's going to start cranking on those hip flexors, and you don't want to irritate your lower back, and you'll feel it if you do it wrong. Yeah, you do it real well. So you can go a little bit further as you go. It's okay for the pelvis to start coming up a little bit. You want to feel comfortable doing it. It's not a ballistic motion. It's not a fast motion. Keep your knees up higher, right there. It's a very, very controlled motion because it's very easy to irritate something if you start whipping your body around because you're going to start rotating. So you got to make sure that you keep the abdominals engaged, and you're just going to be doing a very, very mild side to side. If you can only do 2-3 inches, go only 2 or 3 inches to the side. If you have more rotation, as long as you're not losing the control of the pelvis, you can go a little bit further.
It's going to work your lower abs.
Oh yes, it's going to work your abdominals a lot, but that's what your base is going to be because that's where you're compensating if you don't have the motion in your lumbar spine. Now part 2, okay, rest for a second just so you can kind of take a breather. So part 2 is going to be incorporating the upper body and the mid body as well too. So arms are going to be facing the ceiling, so go ahead and bring your arms up, put your hands together. That's the start position for the arms. Now come on up this way, hold your legs, same position with the lower extremities and the pelvis as before. You're going to keep the abdominals engaged, you're going to keep the knees and arms in a neutral position, and now the upper torso and the lower torso work opposite of each other. So you're going to go a little bit to the side and a little bit to the side. You still want to engage that pelvic tilt, and the motion is very, very, very slow. You'll feel yourself moving. Again, if you're feeling something that's getting too aggressive, stop, reassess, and if you're having pain, then find your physical therapist near you and then have them check you out because you could be pinching something, you could be locked up. But if you don't have any joint limitations or neurological issues, you can really get into this motion. And again, as I'm guiding him, he's got to go really, really slow because the farther you go out, the more control in your pelvis and your thoracic spine you need. And you'll be able to feel that as you go further away from neutral. And so again, just for about 20-30 seconds, you don't have to do it for a long time, and relax. So it's very engaging. So if you start feeling a lot of tension in your legs, did you start feeling a lot of tension here? That means that he was losing the control of where his leg position was, and he wasn't engaging the abdominals enough because his hip flexors started kicking in. So let me get you back up into this position. So when you're here, if you lose that pelvic control, your hip flexors by default are going to hold your legs up because that's what they do. So you're going to know as you go this way, side to side, if you're losing the abdominal control, those hip flexors will start tightening up, kick in, and it can be counterproductive to what you're doing.
You still feel them a little bit.
You'll feel them a little bit, yeah. Yeah, you'll feel them a little bit. But if you really start feeling them cramping up or spasming or really getting tight, then reassess yourself, try to get back into the position. So because you really want to keep that pelvic tilt engaged well. Not far, but just engaged through the motion.
Get your back flat.
Yes, that's really the whole idea. And if you want to reassess, you try it again. Again, if you have pain, then I would say stop.
So how does that work in golfing with regards to engaging your core by using these muscles and everything like that?
Okay, well what happens is your multifidus muscles, put your arms down for a second. Your multifidus muscles run from your pelvis to your neck on the back. And they run in this position, in this plane, but underneath. And so what ends up happening is when we get too much rotation or too much motion out of your lower back, like in your case, you have a little bit of a hypermobile back. And so you don't have enough mobility in the thoracic spine. And if you don't have enough motion in the thoracic spine when you're going through your swing, and you don't stabilize enough with the abdominals, then you're going to end up compensating with the lower back, which is going to be irritated. You can damage something, you can pinch a nerve, you can irritate, you can get your joint stuck, and it's also going to be, you're going to be beating up the lumbar spine. Because of the fact that people don't have enough of the motion in the upper thoracic. So when we do this part 2 to this, you're going to see a little bit more motion of the thoracic. But you have to be able to get both of those to work together so that this way you get the double rotation in the brains that you're going. So you need some of that pelvic motion, but you also need that thoracic cavity to open up to follow through with your pelvis. Because if you get all the motion in one area and the other area doesn't move, that's when you're going to get injured.
Hey, thanks for watching. Thank you, Dr. Phil with Impact Health. Let us know what you thought about the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Most importantly, don't forget to click subscribe.